Someone don't go get Bucky for me so I could just give him the biggest hug, I swear. Hi, my name is Emmy. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to recap chapter 4 of Cold Front, The Winter Soldier. Okay, so we're still in 1941 and we start off with the 16-year-old Bucky. He is going into town, the town Arlington, and he's going to this like soda pop shop. Immediately when he gets there, he sees a group of guys that used to bully him when he was in high school. That one semester he went before he dropped out. He avoids them and he sees behind the counter, I guess, a girl that he's crushing on named Linda. I think they misspelled Emily, but you know, it's fine. So he goes up to her and he sits and I guess it didn't say he got a root beer float. I was gonna say a Coke, but it's so funny because he says, "Hey, you," and I immediately thought, I don't know if y'all watched the show You, I thought of Joel Goldberg. And I can't imagine Bucky flirting, but he's like, I guess he notices that her lips are so pink. So he tells her, are you wearing lipstick or are your lips always that pretty? Thanks, Bucky. So they're kind of just chatting and then he hears a guy talk behind them. And it's a guy named Johnny, one of the guys that used to bully him. Johnny basically starts saying that, just kind of making fun of Bucky, saying that you only really want to join the army because you can't do anything else. Like, you're not smart. You dropped out of high school. Like, the army is all you can do. Linda, at the same time, is trying to get Johnny away from Bucky. She's like, I'll take you your Coke. Just go sit down, and like pinching him to like leave Bucky alone, but he won't. Johnny then says, how hard up is the army that your old man had to come to the high school today to give a speech about joining up once we graduate? To which Bucky's like, he's not my dad, but it does catch Bucky's attention. Johnny says, yeah, the commander pulled me out of class, me and a couple of the other top juniors, 10 highest GPAs in the class. Him and this Englishman wanted to talk to us in particular after the assembly. He says he was recruiting us for some special team in the army that the army is putting together, something more important than just running drills and digging holes. So again, another like dig that Bucky is not smart enough to be part of this special team, that he's just a soldier and that's it. Johnny then says that he's basically alludes to that he's too smart and too special to be part of just the army, and Bucky's like, whatever, dude, like, you're so annoying. So I guess Bucky had it with all the, snarky comments, so he just turns around and punches him in the eye. It says Bucky punched him. He didn't think it was that hard of a swing. It wouldn't have wobbled the punching bag at camp, but when his fist connected with Johnny's eye, Johnny went flying backward like he was yanked by a wire, glasses flying off and skittering under the nearby table. Get him, Bucky. Of course, everyone starts freaking out because Bucky just punched this kid. He starts bleeding. Bucky gets up to leave, but then Mr. Malikov, who I guess is the owner of the soda shop, comes out and basically keeps Bucky until Crawford comes to pick him up. Crawford picks him up and they don't talk the entire ride home until they pull up to the base, and he looks at Bucky and he's like, you need to ice that hand, it's gonna hurt. To which Bucky says, I didn't hurt myself, I'm not stupid. Crawford tells him, you're stupid enough that I got called out of an important meeting because I had to pay for damage done by my kid. Bucky real quick says, I'm not your kid. And Crawford comes at him with, well, if I'm covering the cost of your misdemeanors, you are my kid. Bucky then goes on this whole tangent, well, he called me stupid and he was making fun of me and blah, blah, blah. Crawford says, if it's that easy to get a rise out of you, you're going to get picked on by jerks like that Ripley kid your whole life because it's only fun to poke a dog that bites and to choose your battles wisely. So they kind of just have a small back and forth about that. They walk into the house and there's a man standing in the kitchen. Crawford is like, sorry that you've waited so long. I just had to go pick up my kid. And Crawford is trying to rush Bucky out of the room, away from this guy. But the guy calls to Bucky, not to Crawford. He calls to Bucky and he calls him Mr. Barnes. Is that right? So then he starts asking Bucky questions like, well, why aren't you in school? They briefly mention Bucky's sister, who was separated from Bucky after their parents had died. The man introduces himself as Mr. Yesterday. Bucky's like, that's not your real name, obviously. And the guy's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to tell you my real name. Like I said, they briefly mention Rebecca, Bucky's sister, because Bucky says that he is not in school, and he doesn't want to be. And the whole topic of school really bothers Bucky. Every time they bring it up that he's not in school, he gets real nervous. He says, Beck's my sister, Rebecca. She was always the better student. She got scholarships that would cover the room and the board, I guess, that she was staying at. He then asked Bucky, well, why isn't school important to you? And Bucky says, I already knew what I wanted, and it doesn't require a fancy school. I want to be a soldier. He then asked, but I thought this was cute. He asked Bucky, like, do you know any languages? And he says that he knew Russian and German. And Crawford looks at him like, you know Russian and German? Bucky says, my mom's family was Russian. My grandma emigrated from there to live with us. My mom taught Bex and me both Russian when we were kids so we could talk to her. And then he explains that the delivery driver that he used to smuggle all the goods for was Swiss, and he was teaching him German. Then they start talking about that little scheme of him smuggling goods onto base. Bucky said that he was doing that for about a year, to which that surprised both Crawford and Mr. Yesterday. They were like, a year? Mr. Yesterday tells Crawford, Nicholas, I'm disappointed in you. To which Crawford is like, wait, I didn't know. But Mr. Yesterday stops him and says, not about that. He says, I'm sure there are far worse violations of the United States military code of conduct happening within your hollowed halls. No, I'm disappointed that you have been hiding this exceptional young man from me. He's exactly what I'm looking for. He then explains that he is part of the British Special Operations Executive, which, if you remember, that is brought up, I believe, in chapter 1 or 2. Oh no, chapter 1, when they're talking to the Winter Soldier about the guy that they want him to meet up at the hotel. He is part of the British Special Operations Executive. Connecting the dots. So then they basically have like a back and forth about, you know, Crawford not wanting Bucky to do this, Bucky wanting to, Mr. Yesterday is like, you know what, y'all need to really sit down and think about it. Bucky is real quick to say, I understand everything. I understand that I'll be gone for training, and the training is gonna be, you know, hard. Mr. Yesterday explains to him that they're gonna train him for about a year in, you know, interrogation, torture tactics. Bucky's like, I understand. And Mr. Yesterday stops him and he says, no, you don't understand. You can't. No one truly can understand until you have carried a cyanide pill in your pocket and had to consider taking it. I say this not to frighten you from the work, but to be sure you grasp the gravity of your choice. So understanding that Bucky is just excited, kind of, like he's not really fully processing. Mr. Yesterday basically tells him, like, I'm gonna leave, y'all think about it, contact me. And he looks at Crawford and says, I don't think it will be necessary for you to follow up with those boys from the high school. Crawford says, are you sure? And he says, quite, I believe we found our man. So he knows that Bucky is going to say yes. Like, he knows he's got Bucky. But he just really wants Bucky to understand, like, this is not just some, like, grab a gun and go, you know? So Mr. Yesterday leaves and just tells Crawford to contact him. Then that's when Crawford and Bucky kind of get into a back and forth, like, you know that, but well, Bucky tells him, you know that this is all I've wanted to do. Why would you stop me? My dad wouldn't stop me. So Crawford basically tells him, I'm not telling you you're not going to join, but I'm not giving you a yes either. He says, we will make this an ongoing conversation. Don't argue with me. And I just thought it was sweet on page 83 at the bottom. I mean, we've seen from the chapters we've had from 1941 that Bucky just does not see Crawford as his dad, or he just struggles with that concept, which I believe any child who has lost a parent would. It's like, you're not going to replace my dad. Stop trying. But I thought it was really sweet that at the end, Crawford kind of nudges Bucky and he says, your dad would have been proud of you. And Bucky nudges him back and says, guess you'll just have to be proud of me instead. You know what? I don't need to read no more. I don't need to read no more. That is all for chapter 4 of Cold Front, the Winter Soldier. I just didn't want to do chapter 5 because we're going ahead in time back to 1954 with Agent V. And so I wanted to at least finish off 1941 right now. But on Monday, I will be covering chapters 5 and 6 for sure. But yeah, thank you guys for joining me and for watching this long. I hope you enjoyed. I just, like, nothing really bad has happened and I'm already done.